All right, I'm going to do it right now. Hi, everyone. I'm just giving a few minutes for people to get in from the waiting room. I just asked everyone to mute themselves, please. I'm getting a little bit of feedback.
Did you? Did you put your hand up?
No. Did you put yours up?
Nope. I didn't flush it.
I don't say anything about it.
It's got, no.
I'm going to give it a couple more minutes and then we can get going at 6:05.
That's what happened.
All right, we'll just give it one more minute and then we can get going. And I will admit people as they enter. Okay, it is 6:05, so we can get started. Just give me 1 second. All right, we can get going. Good evening, everyone. Please note that this meeting is being recorded. You should have got a notification right when you hopped on. But my name is Kim Crucioli. I'm the mayor's liaison to the South End and Bay Village. Thank you for joining us tonight. And then again, please note that this meeting is being recorded and the recording can be obtained via public records request. And then I also asked just make sure that you're muted just so we don't get any feedback or interruption during the presentation. Tonight, I will be facilitating the statutorily required cannabis community outreach meeting. This is an application by Herbal Power LLC for a retail recreational store to be operated at the address of 329 Columbus Avenue in the South End. Please note that no decisions are being made tonight. This is just a statutory community meeting required by the city and the state before moving on to the Cannabis Board and Zoning Board of Appeals process. There will be time for question and answers and comments at the end of the presentation. Please wait until the presentation is over before asking questions. There also is an open comment period, meaning that if you do not get called on tonight, or if you think of any questions after the fact, you can reach out to myself or the project team and we'll work to get you that information. When it does come time for questions and answers, I ask that all questions be directed toward the applicant and myself only. The applicant will answer all questions related to their proposal to the best of their ability, and I will answer any questions specific to the city's process. If I'm unable to answer a question or the applicants are unable to answer a question, we'll follow up with you after the meeting to get that information to you. With that, I will turn it over to the project team for the presentation, and then I will be facilitating the Q&A right afterwards. And then I will go over to go over how to raise hands at that time as well.
Thank you, Kim. We are Herbal Power, a social equity and majority woman-owned cannabis company. We're here to present our proposal for a cannabis retail establishment at 329 Columbus Avenue. My name is Desiree Frangel. I am a co-owner and founder of Herbal Power. I am a cannabis advisor and community organizer, lifelong resident of Boston with roots in the South End's Villa Victoria, where I grew up, attended the Blackstone School, and started my first jobs at Tremont Drug and Inquilinos Boricuas en Acción at the age of 16. Yomari, my colleague, will now introduce herself.
Thank you, Desiree. My name is Yomari Chavez, and I was born and raised in Boston. I'm also a co-owner of Herbal Power LLC. I graduated from Boston Latin Academy. I have a bachelor's from Harvard and a master's in human capital management from Columbia University. I am a human resources professional with 10 years of experience focused on talent management, recruitment, employee relations, people analytics, and inclusive excellence. Next up is Brian.
Well, thank you, Tamari. I am Brian Chavez. I'm also a lifelong resident of Boston. I graduated from UMass Boston and majored in economics. I became a small business owner in 2015 and started pursuing cannabis venture in late 2018. The first out of 3 stores opened in March of this year. A pledge I made to myself and to the Boston Cannabis Board was to help other social equity applicants. I'm committed to helping others engage in the cannabis industry in a meaningful way focused on entrepreneurship. Desiree was vital in the community outreach process for my cannabis venture, and I'm excited to do my part to help her achieve her own retail license. My role at Herbal Power is to assist with the funding needed to become operational and consultant when appropriate. Back to you, Desiree.
Thank you, Brian. If we can move on to the next slide, please. So Herbal Power is both a certified Boston equity applicant and a Cannabis Control Commission social equity company. While the 2 programs have some similarities, they are actually completely different, and qualifying for one does not mean you qualify for the other. The Boston Equity Program was created by the Cannabis Ordinance, which established the Boston Cannabis Board and the licensing process. The ordinance is meant to ensure access to the cannabis industry for individuals from background and neighborhoods disproportionately impacted by the failed war on drugs. Brian will now go over some of the disparities we're currently seeing in the cannabis industry. Brian?
Thank you. Next slide, please. So securing real estate is one of the key barriers of entry for social equity applicants in the emerging cannabis industry. Others include financial and technical barriers, such as access to capital and knowledge of business ownership and relevant laws and regulations. This is why our team is so great. Our collective knowledge and expertise covers most of these key barriers. The location is the final piece. Boston has been at the forefront of ensuring strong minority representation in the local cannabis industry because, as you can see in the graph, minorities make up less than 20% of cannabis business owners and founders. Next slide, please. Furthermore, there are significant disparities in how cannabis crimes are enforced across minority and non-minority communities. Minorities are prosecuted at far higher rates than whites for similar drug crimes, although studies show that drug use is about the same for both groups. It is important that social equity plays a major role in the cannabis licensing so that we can begin to right the systemic injustices minorities have been subject to through the criminalization of cannabis. For example, in Massachusetts, despite being 22% of the population, Blacks and Latinos comprise over 50% of the people sentenced to prison. One of the impacts of systemic racism is that Blacks and Latinos make up 75% of people serving mandatory minimum drug offenses, which are typically nonviolent. No one on our team has been sentenced to prison, but as Black and Latino residents of Boston, we have been impacted by the systemic racism of the war on drugs. Thank you. Back to you, Desiree.
Thank you, Brian. Now we will discuss our proposed location, 329 Columbus Ave, formerly the Coda Bar and Kitchen. Our proposed hours of operation are 9 a.m. to 10 p.m., 7 days a week. We currently hold a letter of intent with the landlord, and there are 2 garages within 150 feet of the site. If we can go on to the next slide. This is the proposed floor plan for the retail space on the ground level. This includes a dedicated queuing area in the vestibule to ensure there are no lines on the sidewalk. Customers will be met by a security guard at the entrance who will check IDs inside a control access vestibule highlighted in red. All inventory will be moved to the master vault on the lower level at the end of each day. And if we can go on to the next slide, which shows the proposed floor plan on the lower level. This level will be used for administrative purposes. We would like to use this image to highlight some of the security measures we must have for state approval. Our product will be stored in the master vault in compliance with the Cannabis Control Commission's regulations. A control access vestibule will ensure safe and secure delivery of product in the rear. And the exterior cameras will have extensive coverage of the back alley where we will have a randomized delivery of product throughout the day. And if we can go on to the next slide. Based on community feedback, we've included the interior design renderings for our proposal. Our location's design is inspired by the South End's boutique businesses and brownstones. We wanted to ensure that the space was reflective of the neighborhood. And if we can go on to the next slide, please.
Oh, come on. The kids are going to scream.
And if you can mute your phones, thank you. So as a commitment to the neighbors, our company has commissioned a traffic analysis to examine the impact of the proposed use on the existing conditions. We requested that based on public feedback to focus on other areas among the other areas, the intersection of Columbus and Dartmouth. The analysis examined the existing conditions and the proposed use and the existing parking and found that our proposal will not have a negative impact on the existing condition in terms of the traffic and the parking, especially given our location and the available public transportation options. The analysis found that the majority of our customers will utilize public transportation or come on foot or bike, but that those who do decide to travel in by motor vehicle will be able to utilize some of the existing on-street parking or the area garages located steps away. The inventory of available on-street parking demonstrated that even at peak hours of operation, the existing on-street parking will be sufficient to support the expected demand for parking. Despite these findings, we will encourage local patrons and our staff to walk, bike, and take public transportation to our establishment. As the number of dispensaries increase in the city of Boston, we will see patrons utilizing those establishments closer to their homes or places of work, effectively becoming pass-through patrons and limiting the queuing and traffic we saw when recreational cannabis first opened. Those individuals who opt to drive in will frequent the few establishments that do offer parking. And if we can move on to our security plan. Thank you. So we will require neighbors to execute a good neighbor agreement. We've also worked with the Windwalker Group, who have helped us develop a comprehensive security plan for this proposal. We will coordinate also with the Boston Police District Captain at D4. And if we can go on to the next slide. We will also be employing digital queuing, very similar to the Friendly Toast, in order to reduce lines. The long lines seen at Netta and Brookline years ago have not been seen at other dispensaries in Boston. We anticipate most of our customers will walk in due to the nearby train station and this being a walkable neighborhood. We will maintain ongoing communication and engagement with abutters, neighbors, and community groups to ensure our proposal is not a nuisance to the neighborhood. And if we can go on to talk about our diversion plan. The site will be very secure with extensive anti-diversion procedures that must be approved by the city and state. We will provide anti-diversion training for all of our employees and use approved packaging and labeling that will be recorded in the state-approved seed-to-sale tracking system called Metric. We will also store products in compliance with all rules and regulations in a secure vault.
And so, sure, go ahead, Desiree.
Yep, and Yomari will now go over community benefits.
Thank you, Desiree. At Herbal Power, we will provide jobs for the community, enhance and revitalize the space, provide increased security, and be a committed community partner. As you can see on the slide, we have partnerships with Mass Hires and the South End Technology Center. As a human resource professional in the technology industry, I'm keenly aware of how transformative a career in STEM can be for people from underrepresented groups, and I'm excited about our partnership with the South End Technology Center. We are also open to discussing additional ways to engage in positive partnerships with local community groups. And as in addition, do want to call out that 60% of this community voted in favor of recreational cannabis in 2016. Desiree?
Thank you, Amari. As part of our process, we have engaged in community outreach for the past several months. We have held two private abutters meetings, as well as met with the Ellis Neighborhood Association. We also met with individual abutters at their request and welcome any requests to discuss one-on-one. Our community outreach efforts have been extensive, and we are happy to continue meeting and engaging with the community as we move forward. If we can go on to thank you. The map that you're seeing now shows all of the approved proposed marijuana retail locations in and around the city of Boston. By law, there has to be a minimum of 52 host community agreements for retail recreational cannabis dispensaries. This excludes all other cannabis uses. As more retail locations across the city begin to open, parking and traffic will become less of a concern as residents will have more options in their local neighborhood. We do expect to serve the local community and provide a convenient and safe environment for community members to purchase legal cannabis products. As a reference, Seed in Jamaica Plain reported that out of their 275 daily customers, 50% were from the local neighborhood, and sales were completed in under 2 minutes. We also would like to point out that not only has the Boston Cannabis Board never seen a violation or the state by a cannabis establishment, there has also never been an alleged violation. This is an incredibly highly regulated industry, and we hope to continue that legacy of not having any violations. Here is some information regarding our zoning buffer zones. The map shows that we are not within 500 feet of a school. And it also shows that we are within the buffer zone of another dispensary on Boylston Street. I believe the name is Ayer. As a result, we will be seeking a variance with the Zoning Board of Appeal. The map to your left shows population density immediately surrounding our location. The areas in yellow reflect the highest density population, and the areas in orange, which we are located in, reflect the second highest population density. And the areas in red reflect the third highest. As you can see, we are located in a highly densely populated neighborhood. The map to the right shows a number of approved host community agreements in this area. There is a cluster of approved establishments in the Back Bay, but as you can see, there are no establishments in our immediate area. This area, despite barely being in the half-mile buffer zone, is not adequately served. Just as every neighborhood has multiple coffee shops, restaurants, and packaging stores, every neighborhood will have multiple options for cannabis establishments. Further, the Back Bay and the South End are very different neighborhoods, and we are excited to serve our neighbors here in the South End. Yamari will now go over our action plan timeline.
Thank you, Desiree. So this is an overview of the timeline of the action plan for this proposal. Our process started with community engagement and is built on community feedback. We have held and scheduled private meetings with abutters and with City Council President Ed Flynn. As you can see, we are currently at the community impact meeting stage, and we have several more steps to go. Overall, this process can take anywhere from 12 to 14 months before we can officially open. And with that concludes our presentation. And Kim, I will hand it off to you.
All right, thank you guys. We will now begin the question and answer and comment period. I'm just going to go over how to raise your hand. If you are on by the computer or on the Zoom app on your phone, go to the reactions bottom at the reactions button at the bottom of your screen and click on the hand. If you are calling in by telephone and have a question, please press star 9. I'm going to call on people by the order in which they raise their hand. If you've spoken once and then I have a question after you've already spoke, I will call on you. I will call on you after everyone that's not already spoken yet has had a chance to ask a question. I'll also be monitoring the chat for questions, but I ask that if possible, you raise your hand to ask just due to the volume of people on the call. And then one final thing, please state your name and address before asking a question or giving a comment. And then if you're not comfortable speaking or think of anything after the fact, you can also send your questions, comments, or any positions you have on the statement to me at my email at kimberly.crucioli@boston.gov. So I will begin the question and answer now. And I'll be going in order of how people raise their hands. So we do have a number of people that already have their hand raised. So if you could try to limit your testimony or questions just to a couple minutes, it would be greatly appreciated. So first up, I have Deb Lawrence. Deb, you can unmute yourself.
Hi, thank you. I'm Deb Lawrence at 303 Columbus Ave. So I have a number of concerns about this particular location, but let me start with parking. There is no parking at all in front of 329 Columbus. There is meter parking nearby, but it is only available from 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. except for residents. There's no parking at all during the evening hours anywhere in the neighborhood when the dispensary will be open. People will park illegally in the right-hand turn only lane on Columbus. We already have that problem exacerbated by the dangerous intersection. I have many pictures and videos, Kim, that I'll be sharing with you that neighbors have sent to me, including ones I've taken myself. You'll see semi-trailers parking in the no parking right turn only lane because there's no other place to make deliveries at Cleary's and Urban Grape right now. The alley behind is not a full alley. You can enter and exit only on one side, that's Dartmouth, and there's only a small piece of it even large enough to pull a car into. Even the smaller delivery trucks to Cleary's and Urban Grape park illegally, and then they take these hand trucks around to the alley. The local parking garages are often full, and it's questionable whether people will pay those rates when they believe they can double park illegally in the right-hand only turn lane. In fact, just coming home today from work at 5 o'clock, I saw a car parked illegally there. I don't know what he was doing. I took a picture. Anyways, the bottom line is that this, I think the neighbors wish Desiree and the group well, but the location is a really tough place for parking, traffic, and all of that. So thank you.
Thanks, Deb. And then also just one other thing, after you ask your questions, if you're able to unraise your hand, that would be super helpful. But Desiree, I don't know if you want to respond.
Thank you, Deb. We are aware that the South End is known for, not having a lot of parking. I think one of the reasons we felt like this location really worked for us was because of the Back Bay station, and the neighborhood is very walkable. Residents are walking up and down the street all the time. We're not really intending to have patrons driving in across the city. We really want to serve our local community. So thank you for your feedback.
Thank you. Next, I have Forsyth.
Hi, I'm Jennifer Forsyth.
Forsyth. I see that there's a Brian Forsyth and you. I don't know if you're the same. Maybe one need to meet.
Jennifer Forsyth. I'm the owner of unit 2, 4, and 5 in 329. We are directly above the unit, and I used to live in unit 5 for many, many years. And there was a restaurant on the first floor, and they would actually cook in the basement, and the smell of French fries permeated the entire building. And they took great steps to do ventilation and so on and so forth. But the terpenes, whatever the chemical is in the marijuana, is rancid. And this building is 120 years old, and I don't believe that it's going to permeate the wood, everything in that building. I don't know that my tenants are going to want to stay there. I don't know how that's going to affect tenants going forward who would want to move in there. It smelled so bad with just French fries, like I can't even predict what it's going to smell like when you have cannabis floating freely for 11 hours a day in the building. apologize. Additionally, regarding people pulling up, I don't know how services like Lantern, they're like Uber Eats, or, they're just gonna pull up and someone's gonna run in because they're just like a specialty marijuana delivery service. There's gonna be countless cars lined up outside of our building from morning till night, as long as you guys are open.
And if I could just jump in there, Jen, we appreciate that. My name is Leslie Delaney Hawkins. I'm the counsel for the applicant. Just want to point out a couple of things, and we really appreciate your continued interaction and your feedback. We're not manufacturing in any way on site, so all product will be sealed at all times. We're not packaging on site, so the concerns with odor, they're certainly valid, relate more to cultivation or manufacturing, where there's not going to be any preparation on site. In terms of the delivery direct to consumers, we're actually not proposing that at this time. And the Boston Cannabis Board has very specific regulations that if we were to ever partner with a direct to delivery entity, or we were to ever offer that, that would be a completely separate process, and it would require a community meeting that's separate, as well as the approval of the Boston Cannabis Board. So not only is that not something we're proposing at this time, there is a separate process that would be dedicated to that.
I don't see how you would know the difference between somebody pulling up and jumping out of a car that was working for Lantern versus someone who just walked down the street and came in and said, I would like to buy one thing.
Because our license would be revoked by the Boston Cannabis Board. This is incredibly highly regulated. And the Boston Cannabis Board has in its rules and regulations requirements that if you are a brick and mortar establishment, in order to partner with a delivery offer, which has to be a social equity or economic empowerment operator, you have to receive the approval of the board, and it has to be listed on your license. And there have actually been entities who have gone before the board who have been denied. So there are very strict rules, especially in Boston, that were actually meant to ensure that that couldn't happen without the approval of the board.
And what if somebody opened the product right outside the building? All of that smell would be permeating this building. If they went across the street, is your security guard going to run across the street and stop all those people? Are you going to have two security?
If I can jump in, so there's a seed to sale tracking system that allows all cannabis products to be tracked from when they are cultivated, packaged, and to who purchased the product. Our goal is to be a friendly neighbor, and we plan to have all of our customers sign a friendly neighbor agreement. If any patron is caught consuming the cannabis outside of the establishment, or opening the package and attempting to roll, maybe a joint so that they can smoke, that is something that we will step in and we will ban them from the store. That will not be allowed or tolerated.
I just don't see how you're going to keep track of every single driver who's coming from Lantern or whatever kind of service is pulling up, because there's different people every week.
Yeah.
You can be in, infinite number of people signing the friendly neighbor agreement. It's just like a revolving door of people coming in.
So what we've seen so far with the friendly neighbor agreement is that it's been very effective in not, in dispensaries not violating the Boston Cannabis Board. People do not want to be banned from stores. They do not want their names circulated on a on a blacklist. And so, our hope when we employ the friendly neighbor agreement, it is really a contingency plan to ensure that the concerns of the community don't happen. And if they were to happen, that we'd have an actionable plan moving forward with the individual. So far, out of the 52 dispensaries that have been approved by the city of Boston, the 11 dispensaries that are currently open do have a similar program with their patrons, where they have to agree to follow the rules. And so far,
if they don't, then it's too late to follow up. Then it's too late. And then my tenants moving forward, if they don't want to stay there, then I'm suffering financial loss because of this. a direct financial loss because of this.
Hi, Jen.
It's going to be really hard to enforce.
Hi, if I could just jump in there and thank you for the question, Jen. We respect your concerns, and like Desi stated, we want to be good neighbors. Your concerns are our concerns. It would be a bad business model for our patrons to directly violate the good neighbor agreement, and we'll be in bad standing with the community. But something that I can tell you, today marks 2 months since I've opened my first store located at 43 Freeport Street. And similar, when I was going through that community outreach process, there were concerns from residents that, about people smoking outside, people loitering, just basically a negative quality of life being resulting due to the dispensary being open. I am happy and confident to tell you that not one incident of somebody coming outside, opening a package, rolling, or even going across the street to an abutting business or residential property. It's not happening. And I welcome you guys to look at the information that the Boston Cannabis Board tracking the licensing violations of all establishments, very similar that they do to liquor stores and restaurants with liquor licenses. It's just, I'm happy, fortunately, I'm happy to inform that these things, they're just not happening. Most of our cannabis consumers are law-abiding citizens, people that come from all walks of life. They're just trying to get their product and go home to consume responsibly. And but I respect your wishes and thank you for your feedback.
I'm very concerned about my property values. I don't know how my insurance rates are going to be affected by this.
All right, but yeah, and I'm happy to inform you that no data has shown that property values lower with the opening of cannabis establishments. There's data in Colorado and there's data in Massachusetts. No evidence, concrete evidence has said a cannabis establishment in your neighborhood will lower your property. And result, with the increased security with cameras and the revitalization of an empty storefront, I would argue that it should at least sustain your property value or maybe even increase it.
And Jen, as you know, as Brian mentioned, we do welcome your feedback. We're happy to meet with you. You are direct neighbors. We're happy to meet with you, your husband, and your mom.
And all of my tenants are highly concerned. This is more than just me. This is like everybody, plus my future, plus the investment that I've made, the investment in all of my neighbors and their property value. We're highly concerned.
Okay, we appreciate your feedback, Jen. We're happy to meet with you separately after this meeting as well.
All right, thank you. We're going to move on. And then also, again, just a reminder, after you've spoken, if you could please just unlower your hand just so I can keep track of who spoke already. But next we have Brian Forsyth.
Thank you. Yes, I'm Brian Forsyth. I am an owner of the second floor apartment, which directly abuts the prospective location of this shop. I am also an owner of the fourth floor. I used to be a resident at 95 Warren, which is a few blocks away across from the McKinley School. So I'm intimately familiar with the traffic patterns. Frankly, it's farcical to think that there's available parking. I would routinely drive for 20, 30 minutes looking for a parking spot on a weekend or after work or even during the day. So that is very hard to believe. I have quite a bit of concern about the economic impact of this entity on my ability to rent the second, fourth, and fifth floors of this building. As we all know, marijuana has a very distinct pungent odor, which is caused by terpenes, has been described as skunk-like. And, again, it's very hard to believe that patrons are not going to be opening outside or smoking outside. And Brian Chavez, I felt it was interesting that you said that most of your customers were law-abiding and not all. So I really have very strong reservations. And no one's going to pay $20 across the street to come in for a quick visit to the shop. They're going to double park. It's going to create congestion. There's a school which is just outside the 500 feet. There's going to be lots of kids walking home from school, passing the shop. There's going to be garbage that's cluttering the streets. This is really not the place for a shop of this nature. And I have very, very serious concerns about my ability to rent the second, fourth, and fifth floors. I have concerns about the property values diminishing. Brian, Chavez, you had mentioned that there's no evidence that property values don't decrease, but that's also in the context of a housing shortage. And my ability to rent is going to be impacted. My costs are increasing with inflation, as are everybody else's. So a glib analysis like that doesn't carry a whole lot of water with me, nor any of the surrounding neighbors. And since you began your presentation stating that you were going to incorporate or involve feedback from the community, I think you're going to hear many sentiments like mine, my wife's, and Deb's. So with that, I'll cede my time and let others comment, but this doesn't make any sense.
Brian, and we're happy to meet with you and Jen and Katie whenever you're available. We have been reaching out for a few months to discuss the proposal, and we're still happy to meet with you. And thank you for your feedback.
Yeah, a follow-up. Thank you for your feedback, Brian.
Oh, you're very welcome.
Thank you. Okay, next we have Louis.
Thank you, Kim. My name is Luis Dow. I'm a direct abutter at 325 Columbus Avenue and one of the trustees of my association. I have a letter here signed by 21 people from my building in strong opposition to the dispensary. That is all but one person from my association. We also have signatures. You heard from some of them from people above where the business would be, the direct abutters on the building on the other side. So all surrounding the business, the majority of people are opposed. People who live on the other side of the shared alley, and a large number of people on the same block, all in strong opposition. We are the people who would be most affected by this. I understand there are people further away in the neighborhood who are in support, but I hope that you are considering that the people who would be more directly affected are in strong opposition. As we explained in the letter, we are not opposed to dispensaries in general, or even in the neighborhood, and we are very supportive of minority-owned businesses. Some of us, like myself, are minorities ourselves. So we simply believe this is not the appropriate location. So I really believe it has nothing to do with whether it's minority-owned or not. And I think the location needs to be the main concern for the decision makers here. Among other reasons, it is a busy intersection with no parking. Any stopping or double parking in this open space, which already happens, it would just be amplified. It would be exacerbated. For example, by dispensary customers pulling up for a pickup, delivery, or quick purchase would further intensify an already congested and hazardous intersection. We see this as an important safety issue. So we really hope that the city will consider this seriously. It's a safety issue. Parking is a big problem in the area, as there is often not even enough parking for residents. It also has a very narrow sidewalk. Most of Columbus has a wide sidewalk. That little area has a very, very narrow sidewalk. Even 1 to 2 people standing outside the business would make it very difficult for pedestrians, and especially people with strollers and wheelchairs, to get by in an area where cars drive by very quickly to try to make that turn from Columbus onto Dartmouth. We have a 2-year-old at home, a 2-year-old daughter, so this would affect us directly. There's also people in wheelchairs, people who would be affected directly. Again, this is a safety issue. It is also very close to other dispensaries. Yeah.
I'm sorry. I just kind of want to give people like 2 minutes to ask a question or speak, but if you're able to just wrap it up in the next few minutes, just so we can get to people.
I'll wrap up. Just wanted to say it's also very close to other dispensaries within walking distance in a pedestrian-friendly area, so it is not clear why another one is needed. It is not true what Brian said, that there are no studies showing property values go down. The other Brian kindly posted a journal article in the chat showing that they do indeed go down. So I hope that they will be more careful with the information they provide. I have attended both meetings organized by the proposed business, and I had a 1-hour meeting on my own with Desiree and Jomari as a sign of goodwill to discuss our concerns and try to determine potential solutions. I appreciate they would make an effort to address the concerns, but unfortunately, many of these issues are outside of their control. They're just not addressable. They're because of traffic issues, because of parking. There's very little they could do about it. It's because of the particular location. So in short, a large number of the direct abutters and nearby neighbors are in strong opposition of the project. We will be sharing this letter with you. As I said, we are not opposed to dispensaries and we are supportive of minority-owned businesses. We simply believe this is not the right location. Thank you, Kim.
Thank you, Luis. Desiree or anyone on the team, would you like to respond?
Yeah, I want to thank Louis for his feedback, his comment. If I could just address one point, because I just want to protect my integrity here. Different studies may show different results. So the studies that I read, produced by Leafly, said that cannabis establishments had no negative impact on property values. So I just wanted to just say for the record, and just thank you, Louis, for your comment.
Thanks, Brian. But you said no studies have shown this, so that was not accurate.
Well, thank you for bringing that to our attention. Yes. I wasn't aware of that information.
No problem.
And Mr. Forsyth said there's a housing shortage. So with the current housing shortage, I find it hard and reasonable to believe that there's going to be any challenges of renting out any housing right now, especially in the South End.
Thank you, Brian. Next, we have Paul Tellier. And then again, before, please just try to limit any testimony to 2 minutes, please, just so everyone has a chance to speak.
Good evening. My name is Paul Tellier, and I'm joined on this Zoom meeting with my colleague, Josh Lovell, from the law firm D'Ambrosio LLP. We represent the Neighborhood Action Committee, which is a group of concerned neighborhood residents who are opposed to the proposed dispensary at 329 Columbus Avenue. As of today, our group has collected an overwhelming number of signatures, more than 120 residents in the neighborhood who have serious concerns of the location of the proposed dispensary. Among these concerns you've heard tonight are traffic, safety, and parking at an already dangerous intersection. In addition, loitering, child safety, and congestion. Please understand that our clients are in support of minority-owned businesses, and they are not opposed to the concept of dispensaries, but rather believe that there are safer alternative locations within the city. Our clients, they're ready, they're willing, and they're able to legally defend their concerns and protect their rights. Accordingly, we respectfully request that we be included on all information that is sent out regarding the proposed dispensary. We are also willing to speak with the attorneys involved in this matter and to discuss our clients' concerns. I will send my contact information in the chat box, and I welcome any discussions with the owners and their attorneys. I appreciate the time to speak tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Paul. And just for the record, a lot of the concerns that we have heard in the past presentations over the past few months, really coincide with the concerns that we've seen all across the city of Boston. Right now, there are 11 dispensaries operating. These 11 dispensaries are not currently experiencing high traffic, loitering, littering, or long lines. And so, what we've seen, none of the data that is out there at the moment has shown or predicted that we're going to have that type of impact. But I do appreciate your time and your public testimony.
Thank you. Up next, Brian Chu.
Yeah, hi. Thanks for giving me some time to speak. I think a lot of the points have been made. I think there's a lot of residents who, again, are not opposed to dispensaries in general, but very focused on this location. And I think what you're hearing is that, if you actually tried to pick a worse location on Columbus Avenue in the South End, you probably couldn't pick a worse one. Because you have the sidewalks are as narrow as any place on Columbus Avenue. I think they're the narrowest right in front of this location. It's the only location on Columbus Ave that actually has cones on the meridian because the intersection is so hazardous. It is directly in front of a no stopping, right turn only bike lane. And then there are at least 5 that I know of, elementary, middle school bus stops that happen essentially right on that block within 300 feet. So I think that all of those things, I think is why you're hearing there's such opposition in terms of this particular location. So thanks for your time.
Thank you, Brian. Yeah, I mean, I respect that. I know that, these concerns are reasonable. And again, I'll express that the 11 dispensaries that are currently operating in the city of Boston have not experienced long lines or traffic or the impact that the community is concerned about. In fact, we plan to have a lesser impact than Coda did. I'm not sure. I think their capacity was around, Leslie, can you correct me if I'm wrong? Was their capacity around 60?
Yes, it was.
Yeah, and our capacity, is around 40. And so we're not even expecting to experience as many patrons as the Coda Bar did. Also, like, Coda, they were great neighbors, but the use there and having people come in and we have complaints of a lot of the employees that would go outside and smoke cigarettes. Where they're outside of our dispensary, there will be no smoking at all. Currently, there is a small ashtray that's screwed on to the wall, and I believe that that encourages people to come out and smoke in front of the property. That's not something that will be included once we would be operational.
Thank you. Next, we have Michael Connors.
Thank you. I should be able to keep my time under 2 minutes because a lot of my concerns have already been talked about, so I don't want to be repetitive. So I'm mainly concerned with the traffic, both foot traffic and vehicle traffic. And unlike many of the other speakers, I'm actually new to the area. I've been around about let's say 7 months, and I'm frankly a little bit horrified with like all the disregard of laws from vehicles and even pedestrians, sort of jaywalking, if people still use that term. And so I'm concerned about safety. So what? I think I heard here tonight that the traffic study said that adding the dispensary would not be a major concern, which is a bit astonishing to me, given from what I see, things are already a problem in any level of increased foot traffic. Vehicle traffic is going to just simply create more problems, and you've heard a lot about that tonight, so I won't go on. But what I did want to ask about is I think I heard 2 different things, and what I wanted to ask for is a bit of clarification on that. I was on a previous Zoom call, and I thought and there was talk, or I remember there was going to be a security guard outside managing the line, and that was talked about. And now tonight, I think I was left with the impression that, I definitely heard that you don't believe, I think, that there's going to be lines because we're not seeing them at other dispensaries. So maybe if you can sort of clarify that point, whether, you believe there is going to be lines or you believe there isn't going to be lines. And I'd also like to hear about what the peak hours are expected to be, and how the traffic study, sort of looked at that. Thank you for listening.
I can answer the first question. Michael, thank you for your questions and your comment. So I'm not sure what meeting you attended, but our security guard will be right inside the facility. They won't be outside on the door. And then we do have a area for queuing inside the store. And so we're not expecting lines outside the store in the event that we get multiple customers that happen to walk in at the same time. We do have a designated area to queue them inside the store. And that's why we're not expecting lines to be forming outside of the property. And as far as the traffic study, if Leslie, would you like to step in on this question?
Absolutely. So peak hours for the purposes of cannabis establishments are for the most part from Monday through Friday from 2 to 6, and then on weekends from about 10 to 4. The difference being that peak hours for these establishments, is more of them open, tend to be frequented by what Desiree previously referred to as pass-through customers, in that it's more of these establishments open up. People aren't going out of their way to frequent an establishment. They're actually going to a place that's either on their way home, whether that's by a vehicle, pedestrian, or public transportation, because there are more of these establishments and they're not going out of their way. So they're not creating new trip generations. It's that people who are already on that route are utilizing those. But our traffic engineers did the analysis they conducted were during peak hours in terms of as they pertain to cannabis establishments.
And I could just add, Michael, I think your second question was if there's any lines. In my experience in the last 2 months, being an owner and operator of a cannabis dispensary, we have not had any major lines like that were seen in 2018 when there was only 2 stores open in the state. I've drove by other dispensaries, whether it's Pure Oasis in Grove Hall or Seed in Jamaica Plain. There's no lines out the door or down the block. And yeah, and I think that the data will reflect that, because I think with the Boston Cannabis Board, there hasn't been any licensing violations, and that's just not what you see when you're on the street. Thank you.
Yeah, if I can just add to that, there are currently over 200 dispensaries that have been approved in the state of Massachusetts. And so the long lines that were seen a few years ago were really an anomaly, since customers and people were driving in from other parts of the Northeast, other states. We're just not seeing that. A lot of the people in the cannabis community that I speak to, they literally go to their local cannabis store.
Thank you. Next I have, sorry if I butcher this,
It's
Emery.
Amrit. It's Amrit. Yep, 303 Columbus. Lived on the block for 13 years, lived in the area for 23 years. Listen, it's hard not to be repetitive. I don't really have a question that needs answering. I'll just make a brief testimony if nothing else. Desiree, Yamari, Brian, you guys have done a lot of work on this. I'm a huge champion of supplier diversity where I work. I wish you guys a tremendous amount of luck, but not at this location. I think the comparisons to Coda, frankly, are naive and irrelevant. People go to a restaurant to eat, they stay there for 2 hours. The capacity issue is not relevant. People aren't going to come and go every 2 minutes. Desiree, you say that your intention is for people not to drive. I mean, with all due respect, I don't think you control how people choose to get to the dispensary. The comparisons to the other dispensaries in Boston are, interesting, but not necessarily fully relevant. Those are different locations that have different sidewalk widths. They don't have a bus stop. They don't have a no parking zone. They don't have the same issues. I walk by that location probably 25 times a week, and half the times I have to jump into the street to get by 2 people that are walking, a stroller, what might be you. Your hope is that people bike to the location. I imagine you're not going to have people take the bicycles inside your store, so presumably they'll leave those on the sidewalk. There is trash bags on certain days left on the sidewalk. I don't want to reiterate how dangerous that intersection is. And as I said, I often have to resort to walking on the street to get by. And I think it was Brian Chu that said, you could not have picked a worse location for your dispensary. I can't amplify that enough. So I hope you guys are very successful. I hope you find a better location for this dispensary.
Thank you.
Thank you for your feedback.
Thank you. Next we have Malcolm McDonald.
Hi, thanks very much for the time. Malcolm McDonald, Chandler Street, just more or less right across the street from the location. A couple of points I'd like to make. Number one, from the vantage point of traffic, what hasn't been mentioned, and I would like to see your traffic study, is that just in the last 2 years, 6 parking spots directly across from 329 Columbus Avenue have been removed by the city of Boston. And they were removed for a variety of safety issues, one of which was fire and emergency vehicle access, that we're not able to get past double parked cars, and because of the difficulty of turns in that area with the right turn lane, the bike lane, et cetera. The parking situation is horrendous, and everyone that lives in the neighborhood knows it. So the idea that anybody's going to be able to find a parking spot and then go into any establishment, any retail establishment across the entirety of Columbus Avenue is just not true. And everybody in the neighborhood knows that. The second point I want to reiterate, it's come up, but I just want to make sure it's very, very clear. There are numerous children's bus stops all along that block of Columbus Avenue, and not just during the school year, but also during the summer months when summer camps pick up directly across from the 329 Columbus Avenue location. So there are constantly little kids right around the area. When the legislation was written in terms of the regulation for where dispensaries should be located, it was specifically written with an effort made to keep a fair distance away from actual schools. Now, I will grant you, a school bus is not an actual school, but it is an extension of those schools. There are just way too many kids in that area. Lastly, you keep referencing the rear entry to 329 as an access point for deliveries. That is actually not a legal access point or egress for coming and going on a regular basis. It is actually a fire safety access point, and it is currently signposted for no trespassing. As someone mentioned previously, it is too narrow for vehicles, and there is heavy gravel all over it. So even delivery dollies, hand trucks, et cetera, are not possible to go down that ramp and then behind those buildings. So clearly, I'm very opposed to this, and I think there are a lot of issues here. I wish you all the luck, but as the gentleman before me commented, I wish you all the luck in a better location that's more suitable to your business. Thank you.
Thank you, Malcolm.
Next we have Jonathan Smith.
Hi, Kimberly. Can you hear me okay?
Yep, we can hear you.
Okay, great. Thanks. Hi, everyone. Jonathan Smith. And we're all qualifying tonight. So I'm a member of the Ellis Association. I'm also a member of a subcommittee, the DLZ committee, and the presentation that we're looking at tonight, we were given a month ago. So I've seen the presentation. I'm a resident at 124 Pembroke Street, and I've been a resident in the neighborhood for 41 years. We're all qualifying tonight, but I'm speaking for myself right now. I'm going to, Desiree, I give you props. You're a neighborhood person, and that's very important to all of us who've been here for a long, long time, and those who haven't been. But I had a couple of things that I think I mentioned to you in our previous meeting, but I thought I would reiterate them with a larger audience here. Just 3 things, and then I'll be done. The first one is the storefront appearance out front. As some people have said, it's a bus stop in the morning. I walk through right in front of the CODA every morning, and there is a bus stop at 7 o'clock for middle school and high school kids who get bussed out of there. And so I'm very concerned about what the appearance of the store would be and what the cleanup would be the night before. You spoke about a ashtray on the side of the building. Well, we want none of that. I mean, if this goes forward, this has got to be spick and span. It really does. The second is, you're selling a controlled substance, and the hours that you're presented in your PowerPoint. Let me read them here. 9 a.m. to 10 p.m. 7 days a week. That's unacceptable and is not going to fly in our neighborhood. We have liquor stores in the neighborhood, which we accept and we use. It's a controlled substance. They open typically at 11 in the morning and they close at 10. And on weekends, they have different hours, shorter hours. So that's a non-starter for me. I think that those hours are just, I think you're asking too much. Maybe we'll push back on that, but those hours that are in your presentation, not for me. And then the third thing is, have you spoken to Cleary's about this? Cleary's is a big business. They've been there for decades. If you've ever been down there on weekends, the young people are out on the sidewalk trying to get in. It's just a crazy time. And your hours are going to coincide with theirs. And this is my question I'd like you to maybe respond to right now to all of us. The synergy with Cleary's. Have you spoken to Cleary's? What conversations are there? Can they speak to anyone from Cleary's on this meeting tonight? Can they speak to that? And with that, I'll share the time. Thank you.
And Desi, if I could just jump in on this one. Yes, we have reached out, Jonathan, to Cleary's. And as we move forward in this process, we will be working with them, as we will all of our neighbors, to ensure that our operations plan coincides with them. But we're very, very well aware, just as there are other cannabis establishments in the city that are located adjacent to a Section 12 or a Section 15 package store, restaurant or package store, that will need to ensure that there's
collaboration between the two. And we actually feel that our additional security during the hours we are open, which are not nearly as impactful as the hours Cleary's is allowed to be open, that we will be working directly with them.
Thank you, Leslie. So you say you reached out to them, but can you share a little bit more about that conversation? I think we'd all like to know kind of how Cleary's is, what the conversations are with Cleary's.
We have reached out to the owner of Cleary's, Mr. Glenn, and we will continue to work with him and his support staff as we move forward.
So I take that as not able to speak to it tonight.
We have had discussions, but I'm not going to speak for someone who's not here, but we understand the concern and we'll continue to work with them.
Right. That's a big concern of mine, and I think maybe other people. I'll share the time. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Jonathan. And just to your point regarding the hours, we did present these same hours at our last meeting with you. We are willing to work around the hours of operation, based on the community feedback.
Thank you, Desiree.
Thank you.
Thank you. I do just want to note, we do have 17 hands raised. So if everyone would be able to keep questions and comments concise, that would be super helpful. Next, we have Dave Ting.
Thank you, Kimberly. My name is David Ting, and I'm a long-term resident at 303 Columbus Avenue. I'd like to share my very strong reaction to this proposal. As a direct property owner and a butter, I'm opposed to the proposed dispensary location. I respect the difference of opinion amongst stakeholders regarding this particular location suitability for a cannabis dispensary, as the location of the proposed dispensary directly affect the quality of life. For me, for example, this is under the Federal Controlled Substance Act. Marijuana is a Schedule I substance, and traffic and pedestrian safety and family values for me and my family. And we are not members of the cannabis community. I would like to go on record with my strongest conviction that I stand with over 100 neighbors that this use is inappropriate for this location. The Air dispensary on Boylston Street is less than half a mile away. A second dispensary, in my opinion, is unnecessary. I and the Neighborhood Action Committee are committed to doing whatever it takes to assure this proposed location is not approved. Kimberly, thank you for listening to our concerns in the city's consideration and evaluation of this proposed location. Thank you.
Thank you, Dave. Next I have Howard Levy.
Oh, Gareth Levy? Gareth Levy? Did you say Howard Levy?
Yeah, it says Howard on the screen, but
Oh, that's okay. My husband's phone I'm using. Okay. I'm Gareth Levy. I live at 300 Columbus. I have been here 14 years. I finally gave up. We each had a car, my husband and myself, gave it up because one by one, we never could find a parking place, and it's just got so frustrating, and it's expensive to store the car in the garage. So we finally got rid of all of them. Okay. So I do all my errands by my little old lady wire cart, Star Market and all around. And I try to avoid that area in front of Coda when I come back with my groceries and the little wheels on the street, because it is narrow, it's hazardous. There's boxes from the stores, there's people, and especially on the weekends, the young people that go to Cleary's, they won't even part the way for us to get by. You really have to go way around and off the curb and kind of like your hands in a prayer to get by. Okay. Secondly, I want to say these buildings are old. They were made in the 19th century, and frequently they have needs. People have breakdown of this and that. And so there's many servant trades that come by here and have, get grumpy about, I can't find a parking place, Gareth. And it's tough going. So more cars need for people to get here are just not needed. It's tough going. Thirdly, I'm a grandmother and a mother of 2 boys and 5 grandchildren. They come frequently to the place. I'm just so hoping that you're right, and they're not smoking around. I don't want it. We enjoy the beauty of the neighborhood, the gorgeous Child Hassan Park, Frida Garcia, etc. The threat of air polluting, I don't like it. I'm a nurse. I'm retired, but I'm always a nurse. We're a medical family, and there's not that much has been investigated or is conclusive evidence, about the benign quality for breathing in. I'm okay with people smoking on their own and other dispensaries, but you have to remember this is still a residential as well as commercial neighborhood. That's the way it is. Children live next door to me. Okay. They have babies, they have little girls. Walking around here with that threat is upsetting to me. People are careless and reckless and dropping things around despite signs.
I don't mean to cut you off. I just want to make sure everyone can.
So I guess I don't trust your good neighbor agreements. Not everybody that comes around here can be trusted in general and should know better. Okay. Thank you very much for the time.
Thank you.
Thank you, Gareth.
Thank you.
Okay. Next I have Mark DeFusco.
Yes, good evening. Mark DeFusco. I'm in 290 Columbus across the street. And first I'd like to congratulate you and wish you good luck. We believe the dispensary is a useful business and one that's helpful for the city. We also are all in favor of minority-owned businesses. We all enjoy urban grape right next door, and so we are pleased with that. I have two quick questions. One, I'm concerned about the cash nature of the cannabis business, and I want to understand how the cash nature of this doesn't make the neighborhood a target. And the second has to do with the last question about good neighbors policy. Are you willing to commit that if your premise of no traffic and no loitering, no littering, no double parking, if that doesn't come to fruition, that you will make remedies for those of us who actually have to live here as well? Thank you for taking my question.
Thank you, Mark.
Thank you. Next I have Tim.
Oh, I can answer a little bit. So in regards to the cash nature, Mark, we do have a comprehensive security plan that was put together by Windwalker Group. So we do have a plan to ensure the safety of the store and the neighbors as cash is being transported in and out. Also, not all of the dispensaries are only cash. There are many POS systems that also accept debit cards. And so that's something that we're seeing now with dispensaries, that people are able to come in and purchase with their debit card. And we are absolutely committed to making sure that the Good Neighbor Agreement stands. And if we have to make amendments to our proposal, if the contingency plan that we have in place isn't effective, then we will. As I said, being a good neighbor is important, and we understand that a lot of the concerns in the neighborhood are reasonable. It's just that, we're not seeing that sort of impact with the 11 dispensaries that are operating in Boston and over 200 dispensaries operating in the state of Massachusetts. Thank you for your feedback and your question.
Thank you. Next I have Tim, which I'm sorry, Tim, I lowered your hand by accident. And then next after that, I have Angela. And Angela, I'm not sure if your question may have been answered, but I did have you next to speak. So we can do Tim and then Angela.
Hey, can you hear me okay?
Yep, we can hear you.
Okay. Oh, great. Thank you very much. I'm going to try to be somewhat brief. I think the comments so far are excellent. I'm going to try to say some different things, not because I think the points I'm making are more important than the ones already made. I think the ones made, 5% of them. What I am concerned about is transparency here and honesty and frankness coming from Herbal. This is not a Herbal Power, I'm sorry. This is a multi-million-dollar endeavor. It's not a little mom and pop shop. And I went over some of your documentation. I looked over your operating policies for marijuana retail establishment that you filed. That looked like a cut and paste job that someone just took from something else, cut and paste, and submitted it to the city. I looked through that to see how, what was your
Tim, I'm sorry, we're
consideration for
losing
the
you a little
neighborhood?
bit.
Sorry, you were breaking up a little bit. I'm sorry.
Okay. Can you hear me now? Okay.
Yep.
Perfect.
Okay. And there was nothing mentioned about the neighborhood, which leads me to believe that there really isn't a fundamental concern about the neighborhood. It's about getting this business in place, adding to Brian's 3 stores. Brian, you'll get 4 stores. You'll have a nice little empire going there. If you are truly a good neighbor, taking up our only meter spots is not good neighbors. Those are used for construction workers, vendors, the entire South End, as well as residents. The people coming by are going to be using it. Now I've heard you have a traffic study, you have done analysis of coming to the store. I heard from council the hours, the traffic from 2 to 6, 10 to 4. You must have provided economic information from it, because you've already gathered economic information, because this is not something you guys are putting together out of your own pockets. You're borrowing money, you're borrowing a lot of money, you're getting investors. You've got to please those investors. Maybe, Brian, you're laughing, maybe you don't have investors. I couldn't believe it. But you say you have analysis here of the traffic. So I'd like to know, my question is, oh, and then you're gonna have deliveries multiple times a day. That's what you guys said today, multiple deliveries. So you're expecting a lot of people coming. Well, you shake your head, you said multiple deliveries?
We will have randomized deliveries throughout the day. So normally if a delivery comes in with product, it will be once, not multiple times a day. And I'm not
When you say
sure.
randomized deliveries throughout the day, means more than one delivery
I'm sorry,
per
but could
day.
you let her
So-
answer the question
Yep,
first? Thank you.
Sorry,
Yeah, so
go ahead. I apologize.
what I mean by randomized is that we're not going to have a delivery truck pull up at 10 a.m. every day at the same time to deliver product. It's a it's a safety issue. So we will be randomizing the delivery times throughout the day. So on a Tuesday they can come in at 11 a.m. and then maybe the following Thursday they will deliver at 2 p.m.
I apologize. When
Also,
you said throughout, go ahead.
yeah, and I'm sorry that if you misunderstood that. Tim, also I'm not
Yeah,
sure
no,
what application you're pulling up. We when you're talking about investors.
Correct,
I'm
thank
not
you.
talking about the investors. I'm talking the application. I'm talking about which you filed
Tim, we're
with the
losing
city.
you.
Yeah, we're losing.
With it. It's your operating policies for a marijuana retail establishment at 329 Columbus Avenue. This is your documentation describing how you're going to operate the business. It also included your ownership divisions and a flow chart of the ownership, et cetera. All I'm saying, the reason I'm saying it's going to require a lot of money. I also looked at your letter of intent with the landlord. You're going to be required a large deposit on that. You hired a very expensive law firm with a person that came off the board.
Tim, I'm
but-
sorry, I don't mean to cut you off, but we still
Yeah,
have
you need to.
some people that want to speak.
Let me ask the question. What are the numbers from your studies that you've done? How many people per day are anticipated to come to the facility? And during what hours are those people expected to come?
Jim, we can absolutely share that. This traffic analysis that we just received back actually details all of that. And I will put my email in the chat as well, but this will also be submitted to the Boston Cannabis Board as well as to the elected officials. I do want to make clear that under the rules and regulations of the Boston Cannabis Board, every direct and indirect beneficial interest holder has to be disclosed. And everything that is being disclosed to the board is true and accurate by this team. And it's one of the things we're incredibly proud about, and not to speak for this team, but that they are locally owned, and that Brian's success, hopefully with his first and the other two, and he only holds a very minority interest in this, because as he said initially, part of his goal is to lift people up, right? The rising tide raises all ships. And that's one of the reasons that we're incredibly excited about this team, that we are all Boston residents, minority Boston equity applicants, and we're not bringing on any sort of out-of-state funding right now. And again, I defer to the team on that point, but all of these matters have been disclosed to the board and will be continued to be disclosed to the board as we move forward. So happy to share this analysis with you, and I'll put my email in the chat.
Can you answer the question though? Just how many people per are you expecting per day?
Tim, I apologize. for
Tim,
cutting
we're
you off.
expecting.
You testified.
Trip generation, Tim, it's not that easy. Trip generation depends on the day. It depends on what it is. But again, we're happy. This is all in here, and I'm not going to read out of it. It depends on what day of the week it is, but we can absolutely share that information.
And Tim, what I can say is that based on the data that we have seen with other operating dispensaries, we do plan to have around 200 to 250 customers per day, if at all. That data is constantly changing because the cannabis industry is not stable. And as you know, these stores continue to open, each neighborhood will have 2 or 3 stores, which will bring the customers per day down on each individual store. So that's the expected number right now, and that may very well change.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you. Next I have Julie, or I'm sorry, Angela. I said Angela could speak after Tim. Sorry, I think Angela's hand may have come down, but I had that next on the list.
Oh, I'm sorry. No, I'm here. I just wanted to say, like, I appreciate everyone's concerns, but to me, it's interesting because I know within the vicinity in the South End, there's a numerous amount of restaurants, there's a number amount of liquor stores, and all these safety concerns for a cannabis dispensary. And whether or not a customer will walk out of that store and open up a package and smoke or whatever the case may be, I'm just wondering if those concerns are the same as if what's more likely to happen is for someone to walk out of a liquor store and open up a bottle and head on right to the kid-friendly park, as I saw that someone stated, and sit there and drink. And that's something that I've seen happen around the neighborhood plenty of times, and it doesn't seem to be as much of a safety issue, where I think cannabis is far more controlled. And there are far less issues concerning safety towards children. But that's all I just wanted to say. And if moving forward in the next meeting, if all would be so kind as to let the presenter completely answer a question before cutting them off. Thank you.
Thank you for your feedback, Angela.
Thank you. Next I have Julie.
Hi, Julie Haas, resident at 303 Columbus. I also own a unit at 285 Columbus as a landlord. I've been in the neighborhood for about 10 years. So I share the concerns that have been expressed tonight by a number of my fellow residents. I won't belabor the points around parking and the disruption and all of that to our neighborhood and homes. But I did want to interject just, another point that we haven't talked about. We talked about children and schools and that type of thing. There's two organizations that are in our neighborhood. First is the CDER headquarters. I think you all know, an urban service corps for young adults. It's roughly 300 feet or so from the dispensary. And I think about the number of young adults who are coming there and the influence that this could have on them. Similarly, there's a South End Technology Center, which is an education center providing after-school programming for children and adults. And it's just over 300 feet away from the location of the dispensary. And so I know we talked earlier about the concerns for child safety, for some of the school bus drop-offs, the extension of schools. I think these are two important organizations for our community and have concerns related to the proximity of Herbal Power being so close to them.
Thank you, Julie. We're not within 500 feet of a school, and that's really the only rule and regulation around having a cannabis dispensary close to a school. We have worked and done plenty of community outreach in the neighborhood. The South End Technology Center is actually a technology center that offers services to the minority community who do not have access to technology. They may not have a laptop at home. And this may seem rare to you, but it happens. There are communities within the South End that are, not that face different challenges. Some people are struggling to pay their bills and they can't afford a laptop for their kids. And so they do come to the South End Technology Center. We've actually talked to the SETC, and we have committed to working with them and helping them with grant writing and other services that they may need, because I'm not sure if any of the residents of the community are aware, they have struggled in the past years with funding. And so that's something that we're willing to help them with. And we do care about this neighborhood and the kids in the community. We would not have proposed a cannabis retail store if there would be a school or a child's park or any of that nature directly across or nearby the proposal. But I do appreciate your feedback, and we're listening. Thank you, Julie.
Thank you. Next we have Swallow. Swallow.
Sir, you're on mute.
I can unmute you. Hold on.
I'm George Swallow, and I live at 303, and I thank you for the time. It just so happens that I've been volunteering at the South End Technical Center for the last 5 years. And, it's a very rewarding kind of work, but South End Technical Center kind of hit on hard times. And it is programs are way down from where they were before. But historically, it's drawn people from all over the city, and parents give their kids permission to come here because of what the technical center offers. But a lot of the kids are coming from places like Hyde Park and West Roxbury, where access to a cannabis dispensary is not very easy, and having them come to an area where it is, and there are older counselors involved who might be willing to go buy something for somebody. That's a big concern to me of how that might affect the South End Technical Center. But back to some of the other issues, as far as the sidewalk goes, I'd like to note that there's a CVS at the far end of the block, and you'll often get a lot of people going there, especially older people who are using canes or wheelchairs to get down there, and the blockage in front of the area where the sidewalk's narrow. On trash day, it's totally blocked. I'm seeing somebody else on my screen. Are people hearing me?
Can hear you.
We hear you.
Yeah, okay. So, and I don't know, did I say it? There's on garbage collection day, if there's one person walking down the sidewalk and you want to get by quickly, you need to go out in the street because it gets really cramped in there. And that's like a total disaster. And sometimes the trash is sitting there from morning till well into the afternoon or towards evening. And there's also post people coming through and opening up there's a storage box there, and they come and get mail. So it gets crowded in there. And so traffic is a big concern. Thank you.
Thank you, George. In regards to your comment on the South End Technology Center, so I've been in communication with Miguel King, who runs the Technology Center, and one of the reasons that this product is so regulated, one of the reasons why there is a seed to sale tracking system called Metrics, is to ensure that the product doesn't get into the wrong hands. And as a lifelong, community organizer, I feel that it is important for any business to maintain a high level of engagement with the community. And that's what we've tried to do so far, and we will continue to do moving forward.
Thank you. I just ask again that we try to keep questions and comments concise. And then also, if your question or your comment's already been addressed or stated, if you could just lower your hand, that would be helpful. Next, we have Cecilia.
Hi, everyone. How are you? I don't know if you can hear me or see me. Desiree, again, I just wanted to appreciate how open you've been to hearing our concerns, but I really just wanted to add a little bit extra sort of color to the situation. I live on Chandler Street, which is half a block down on the other side, parallel to Chandler, Columbus. And we have a serious problem with parkings that overflows from Columbus onto our street. So there is not a day or a time of the day that we don't drive by where cars are constantly double parked. And if it's not for the residents trying to find parking, but it's construction workers trying to get to their job day in and day out, cars barrel down the road. And in fact, most of the construction work that happens on Columbus Ave flows over and takes over our parking on Chandler. In addition to the parking and my concerns for my own young child that I often have to carry as we cross the street because drivers are actually pretty reckless and drive quite fast down those intersections, we have plenty of people who are already smoking on our personal doorstep, which is illegal, right? It's illegal to smoke in public parks or in public spaces, but it is illegal to smoke on private property. And I already have that happening. And so in addition to creating another high volume business that caters to individuals that will smoke marijuana. I don't think there'll be any policing that happens around the block, especially since that is immediately outside the more commercial area. And it's much harder to police that. And it's hard for me to tell people to stop smoking on my stoop because it puts me in a directly confrontational environment with people who I don't want to offend, but I also don't want them to kind of fill my personal home with the smell of smoke. So I am concerned about increased access to marijuana, especially in that area. I want to pull my hair out every day with parking. So I cannot imagine a high volume business, making the better environment for the people that work there. And I really hope you success, but I cannot imagine that this be the right location for my quality of life, for my family's quality of life. And with that, I'll cede my time.
Thank you, Cecilia.
Thank you. Next we have Hugh Scott.
Hi, I'm Hugh Scott. I've lived on Casanova Street for over 45 years. The South End does not have enough parking spaces for the residents who live here. The notion of adding one transient car roaming around looking for a parking space is not acceptable. The residents themselves can't find parking, and some number of automobiles are going to be added to the flow around the streets of the South End in the evening looking for parking places. We don't need that. Thank you.
Thank you. Next I have Lily. I think your hand was raised, but I'm sorry if it went down.
Yeah, hi, can you guys hear me?
Yep.
My name is Lily Ocasio. I live in South End, San Juan Street. My family's been in this community for generations. My great-grandfather was a co-founder of the Villa Victoria, leading the outreach for the Emergency Tenants Council. So with that being said, Black Latinos have been fighting to remain and be a part of this neighborhood. It's time that we start recognizing the diversity in our community and be inclusive to all. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for your feedback.
Next I have Maddie Norman. Maddie, are you able to unmute? Okay, next I have Stuart.
Oh, hi, sorry, my thing wouldn't go.
Oh, no
Can you hear
worries.
me?
Yep.
Hi, so I am a current tenant in re-signing for the next year for the second apartment of Columbus 329. So the dispensary will definitely affect my living situation and my roommates. My room is actually the third window on the second apartment. So it's like my bed's right against it. And I just had like some safety concerns regarding the lines outside. And just like, I don't know, hearing that there's safety concerns for you guys with like drop-offs and having to do it at like scattered, unscheduled times for the safety of your company and things getting taken, or I don't really know. It's scary for us a little bit. And I don't know, it's just, our main concern was the safety. I'm all for a dispensary. I don't want to be above it and have it be something that will keep me up at night, whether it be like the loud noise or just the people outside or just the smell. I don't know. I'm all for the business and minority owned businesses. So just putting that out there, it's more the safety that concerns me and my roommates. Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank you for
Maddie.
your feedback.
Next we have Stuart.
Good morning. Thank you for the opportunity to be here today. I have a question about the security guard who the company is deciding in their process to hire. Will the security guard be armed or unarmed? And will they only be in the store or will they be outside of the store as well?
Oh my God.
Brian, would you like to answer this question?
Yeah, thank you, and I appreciate the question.
Oh my God.
The staff the staff member that's in charge of security will be inside the store, queuing. At my store currently, that's how it is. The staff members inside the store. Sometimes they may be outside to tend to the parking lot, but in this location, since there's no parking lot, the security person will be inside greeting the customers in the queuing area. And for the second part of the question, staff member will be unarmed. I think there's regulations. We can't have weapons, or customers can't bring weapons to the facility. And yeah, that's it. And I hope that answers your question.
It does. Let me follow along behind that for one more additional to the security piece. Is this staff member trained by BPD, or is this staff member just appointed by you as someone who's in charge of security?
I guess it would have to vary with what staff member, but no, they would be trained by us. Some people already come with security background that they may have that experience being trained by, you saying BPD maybe, or another entity in a police academy, like many special police officers / security guards, armed security guards undergo. But the staff member will be trained by the store. Okay. And probably adhere to the security plan of the consultant of Windwalker.
Thank you for the answers. I live at 303 Columbus and have been there with my wife for the last 10 years. The concerns about traffic, the concerns about safety for the residents, the concerns about parking have all been resaid today. I'm not going to continue to drone on about that. I do worry, however, about the use and abuse of the product after it leaves the store as the patrons are walking up and down the street, with a security guard inside and unwilling and or unable to confront the patrons to be able to require them to adhere to the document that you're going to ask them all to sign. It's a lovely thing to have this document, to have them to sign. It sounds great. It appears to be a phenomenal idea, but at the end of the day, I don't know if the people are going to really bother to follow the rules and regulations, and I don't know how they're going to be able to do it and how you're going to be able to enforce those rules and regulations once they leave the facility, because once they're there, they're on a public street. Today, as we walk up and down Columbus Avenue, there are multiple events where people do smoke marijuana as they walk up and down, in the same way that they also smoke a cigarette. So it's not something that's preferred. I would prefer it not to be there whatsoever, but at the same time, I would prefer not to see this store in its location. I applaud the team. I'm thrilled by what you're attempting to do. I support what you're attempting to do. And I believe that you have the right idea. I just think you have the wrong location.
Thank you, Stuart. I do want to acknowledge that the friendly neighbor agreement is actually something that dispensaries all across Boston have been adapting to. And many of us in the cannabis industry believe that because of the friendly neighbor agreement that all patrons have been signing across the city, that, that contributes to there not being one single violation for the cannabis board, as opposed to liquor licenses who often have many violations. We're just not seeing that same effect with the cannabis board. Thank you.
Thank you. I do want to acknowledge that I did have the meeting set for 8:30, I believe. So I will take as many questions and comments up until that time. We still have 14 people with their hand raised, so please keep in mind to keep the questions and comments as concise as possible. Next, I have Maria C.
Thank you. Hi, good evening. My name is Maria Cotto. I live on Tremont Street and I support this proposal. I don't believe this business will be a nuisance to the neighborhood. They have a good plan in place and I trust in their competence to address any issues that should arise. Thank you.
Thank you, Maria. Next, I have Margaret.
Hello. Sorry, let me stop. I'm Margaret. I am Maddie's roommate. I currently live in the unit that's above this proposed location, directly above a unit 2. I'm a 23-year-old young woman. I live with 2 other young women in this location. And I think a couple units above us are also young women who are renting these apartments. And I agree with a lot of what's been said here. And I mostly want to reiterate and share my feelings and perspective as the unit above. So I first want to share that I am definitely in support of recreational cannabis use and of course, minority-owned businesses. And like many have said, I think this is a great idea, just not here. My main concern is safety. As someone who obviously heavily traffics this area, the idea of people surrounding our apartment for drug use, potentially, confusing our door with a door a few feet over, and an overall increased traffic of people looking to engage in substances does not make me feel safe. And the presence of Cleary's is definitely not something I'm like thrilled by. I've been there a few times, but mostly my experience with Cleary's is that it keeps me up on Saturday nights and on the back side of our apartment, but also on the front side of our apartment, smashing bottles, lots of noise, things like that. And I just believe that the idea of exacerbating this already pretty heavily trafficked area is just not something I'm comfortable with. And as many of you know, there's a strong presence of many addicts just a football field or two away at the Back Bay station. And I worry a lot about how this would impact that presence. There are many mornings when I've woken up to somebody asleep at our door, somebody asleep at the door for Coda, where this property would be, somebody asleep at the door, one more over. And I feel concerned about how this would be worsened. And altogether, I just feel incredibly uncomfortable with the idea of this establishment, and not because of the nature of the business. Like I said, I'm a supporter and of cannabis and obviously my minority-owned businesses, but because of the safety concerns with the increased foot traffic. And again, I appreciate you guys calling this meeting and all of that, but definitely as someone who will be directly impacted by this as an upstairs neighbor, I'm not comfortable with this.
Thank you, Margaret. I do just want to point out that, cannabis establishments are highly regulated. Our security plan has to be submitted and approved by the city and state. It is one of the most secure businesses that we've seen in communities as of yet. Also, we won't be open till 1 or 2 a.m. Our proposed hours of operation will be to close at 10 p.m. and our security system will have live feed to the Boston Police Department, whether we are open or whether we're not. Also, additionally, just having worked in communities where people have been impacted and are struggling with substance abuse, I believe a better term rather than addicts is, to talk about people who are suffering and struggling with substance abuse and mental health issues. But I do appreciate your feedback today. I'm glad you were able to make it. Thank you.
And thank you for that correction. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Next I have Marie. Marie, are you able to unmute? Okay. Next, we can go to Kate.
Hi. Oh, is that me?
No,
I thought I was unmuted. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Okay, I have one comment and one question. So my comment is people seem to have a short memory about the mask mandate. We had laws governing mask mandates, but many people ignored them. And I'm concerned that the same will happen to the good neighbor policy. And my question has to do with, are the 3 people who are on this call for Herbal Power 100% owners, or what is your percent of ownership in the cannabis dispensary?
Thank you, Marie. So our ownership is strictly amongst us three. I am 51% owner, and the rest of the ownership is divided between Yomari Chavez and Brian Chavez. When you own three dispensaries, you're no longer allowed to have more than 9.99% ownership in another dispensary. And so Brian has joined our team to help me with the financial barriers that people of color normally face in entering the cannabis industry. So yes, it is only us three as owners.
And what would happen if one of you, or you, for example, decided to sell your 51% share? Would it have to be sold to another minority?
It would have, I don't believe I can sell my 51%, but I believe and actually, Leslie, can you answer this? Yeah, I don't want to give the wrong answer.
No worries. As this is a certified Boston equity applicant under the city's ordinance, first of all, any change in ownership interest would have to be disclosed to and approved by the Boston Cannabis Board. But for the purposes of an equity license, under the rules as they exist now, equity status, which is not limited to being a minority, right? Being a minority is simply because minorities were disproportionately impacted by the failed war on drugs. That's one of the ways in which you can qualify in part to be a Boston equity applicant, but there are many individuals who qualify based on other considerations who are not minorities. But the licensee has to at all times maintain the Boston 51% or more of Boston certified equity status. So however they qualify, and there's a qualification process through the city, it's not subjective, it's written into the ordinance, that must be maintained at all times with at least 51%.
So thank you very much.
Thank you, Marie.
Thank you, Marie.
Thank you. Next we have Kate.
Hi, I just wanted to say I'm Kate from 303 Columbus, and I think we're all in agreement. All of us, I think, support woman-owned and minority business, and I think the key thing is we want them to succeed. And I think the really key opposition coming down to this particular location, and many people have concerns about traffic and also the bus stop. And I've been here for 13 years. And that I think you have mentioned that peak hours will be 2 to 6 and Monday through Friday, they would directly coincide with many buses from many different schools coming to drop off the kids, which normally becomes peak hours anyways. And I think this would combine with the dispensary's peak hours. And also you had mentioned that you're expecting currently, based on your study, 200 to 250 people per day. And if you really narrow it down to, let's say, most retail operations say peak hours would be 50% of their visitors. So if you narrow it down, that's 125 people during that 4 hours. And you had mentioned that 2 minutes per transaction, that's what you're projecting. And that's 31 people. And even if they're all coming by on foot or bike, we know the Coda location. We actually frequently visited the location so that we know you guys can't house these bicycles. And I have a young child who was in a stroller, and as many people have mentioned, that it's hard to get by with a stroller with just by myself. And on top of that, if these bicycles, you guys have not mentioned how you guys going to house these bicycles, because we see it in front of CVS when there are multiple bicycles, people either try to lock it to the trees in front or they try to leave them, and which it leads to other people. And I know bicycle theft is one of the big problems in the city. So it just attracts different people coming by, and 31 people visiting per hour during these peak hours, during that 4 hour where there are young children walking by, and a lot of them are on scooter. So if you think about bicyclers coming out of your store and getting on the bike, first of all, this is incredibly busy traffic intersection. So there is really no good place to get on the bike and start riding. So that means that they're going to be on pedestrian road, which is the narrowest point on Columbus Avenue anyways. And then there are these blind corners coming off of Cleary, where I have done this. I actually stopped my child many times. She's riding a bicycle, turning the corner, bumping into even pedestrians. So just increased traffic. just causes safety on both bicyclers and also lots of pedestrians. And I think a lot of people have said they would rather walk out to the street than just because there's congestion. And just looking at these peak hours, 2 to 6 p.m. Monday through Friday, and Saturday, Sunday, 10 to 4 p.m., that is a peak hour for all the pedestrians who live in the city also. So I think that these numbers just adds a lot more congestion, which is leading to safety issues, I think, just for the pedestrian who's walking. And we want you to succeed. And I think that that's what we're pointing out, that we live here, we've been here for a very long time, and this location doesn't seem to work very well for walking or bicycle visitors. So I wish you well, and we just don't think this is a great location for this type of business. Thank you.
Thank you, Kate. Just to clear up misunderstanding. So the amount of people per day was not based on the traffic study. It's really just based on the data that we're seeing across the state and in the city of Boston. Those numbers seem to be going down as more dispensaries open. And as far as the bikes, when we say we encourage people to use the public bikes, those bikes normally have stations around the neighborhood, so they won't necessarily have to try to park the bike in front of the property.
So
Those public bikes can be stationed around the neighborhood. There are different stations of public.
Yes, we use them. So you're expecting your people who come and visit to park them somewhere else and then come to a store and get them back from the station to get the bicycle and come back.
I can't predict how our customers are going to utilize the bicycles, but what I can tell you is that most of the dispensaries that are currently operating are seeing the majority of their customers being from the local neighborhood. I am in the neighborhood 4 days a week. I normally will take the bus in and I'll walk around the neighborhood for 4 or 5 hours, get work done, and then get on the bus back home. So there are different methods of transportation in the neighborhood, and I think that's one of the things that makes the South End so unique. The fact that people are walking around the neighborhood and supporting local businesses constantly.
I think
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kate.
We still have 18 hands raised, and the meeting will be ending at 8:30. So everyone, please just keep in mind, if your question's already been answered, please lower your hand. If you've already made a comment, please lower your hand. But we will try to get through everyone before this ends. Next, I have James Finney. James, are you able to?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yep.
Hey, hello, hi. I live at 53 Gray Street. First, I want to clear up something. I heard Tim make a couple comments earlier that Brian needed to get all these different investors, and he went into this whole big thing and kind of insulted the man. And I took it personal, and I think that it's kind of disgusting for him to break this whole thing down when it comes down to minorities trying to do something positive and trying to do things to help each other out. So I find it very insulting that he could come on something like a Zoom and try to break something down, because we've been trying to get into a cannabis business like this for quite some time. And to see someone come on here and try to break someone down every time someone try to open up something, I just find that very bad, because I don't see it happening to other people besides minorities when they come on these Zooms. And I've been on a lot of these Zooms. So moving on from there, I live at 53 Gray Street in Boston, in the South End area. And I've been hearing a lot of negativity about it's not going to work, it's not going to do this, it's because of the park, and it's because of this, and it's because of that. And this has been a very professional company, a very professional group, and they have been trying their best to reach out to the whole community. So Why don't we just take a step back and listen and try to work things out? Because we don't have any minority companies here. We haven't gave them a shot. We haven't gave them any opportunity to do anything around here like this. I have been trying to get into this industry. I think this is a good industry to get into. And I've been around this area for quite some time. What is a good time for this? So let's embrace it. I'm in support of this, 1,000%. So they got my 1,000% support in this area. I've been around here longer than a lot of people that's been on this Zoom. And the only thing I've been hearing is this is going to be a problem. That's going to be a problem. Everything's going to be a problem on here. Well, what is going to be a solution? When can we fix it if everything's going to be a problem? We should come to some type of agreement and try to fix something instead of always breaking something. How can we ever come together if we're always going to be at each other neck? There's so much bad things going on in this world, and why can't we just come together? You know, 60% of people voted for this thing to be legal, and that's all I'm hearing is so much, this is going to be a problem, that's going to be a problem. You know, people never wanted to live in this area back in the 80s and the 90s. Now people is around here trying to say they don't want no one around here doing anything. There's no minority businesses around here. I can't even walk around here with people looking at me like I got like 18 heads, and I've been living around here longer than anyone else been living around here. And I'm a minority on Gray Street down here in the South End. We should give this business a chance because we all voted for it 60%. I am 100% in favor of this business. Thank you.
Thank you, James. Next we have Sanjay.
Hi, good evening. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Yeah, just a couple quick comments. I think, everybody understands marijuana is not only a stimulant, but it's a depressant. And while it has some, exceptional uses in terms of medicinal purposes, I think there is a large volume of patrons that will use this for the first two reasons that I mentioned. And you may have people that are either coming down off of it, that are, potentially in a depressed mode, and you may have people that are, seeking to be stimulated. So, I mean, I promise you, you're not going to have a lineup of professionals out the door, doctors, lawyers, engineers, teachers, you name it, in line for this product. Having said that, I purchased a unit for my daughter, who is a dental student, in the building right next door at 325. And the reason that I spent, an exorbitant amount of money and purchased a unit in, the beautiful South End area is because of the safety issues. I would have never spent, just shy of $1 million for a unit in an area that I had any concerns about safety or the clientele of people that would be, in the general area of the entrance to the building, etc. And I'm a little bit disheartened to hear that, again, I'm not convinced of the safety that has been addressed. A non-uniformed, unarmed guard, inside the building. This is not going to address these issues. Had there been 3 years ago, had there been this business in place right there, I promise you, I would have never purchased in that area. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, I have Anya.
Hi, everybody. I live at 325 Columbus Avenue. We have a 2-year-old daughter, but I think I'm just going to speak to the points that haven't been addressed. And I think Attorney Hawkins spoke to this about having discussions with Clary's. Clary's is frequented, and whether or not we like business of Clary's or not, it's here. So we are dealing with that. We're trying not to make things worse. The lines are long on Thursdays, Fridays, and Saturdays. It's difficult to get through the sidewalk. But what concerns me most is that those nights are frequented by college students. And yes, some of them are 18. They're not supposed to be getting in there. They're not. Let's just assume they're not. Let's assume that everybody's over 21. Let's just say that. There are so many college students in this area that no amount of, how do I say this? You call it the good neighbor agreement is going to keep this going. Let's just assume that everybody, there's one friend buys marijuana one night for a friend. And then you guys get onto him and you ban him from all your stores. Well, he's got 10 more friends and so on and so on and so on. What is your business is going till 10 p.m. That's my understanding. These kids show up by 7, 8 o'clock, long lines. Okay, there's no accounting for taste or for good manners or whatever it may be. College students come here to study hard and sometimes they party hard. Let's be honest about this. And how is it that you're going to control this? College students come into your store, purchase marijuana, go across the street and smoke it at the park, smoke it in the alley, wherever they may find an area where that's accessible. You're saying it's a social thing. Well, college students get together for social events. They get together to hang out with their friends. They will purchase your goods. They will smoke them, likely around our neighborhood, walk into Clary's for more drinks. This intersection is very, very busy. There are trucks for deliveries practically all throughout the day. There's double parking. I live at 325. I am stay-at-home mom. Trust me, I look through the window and I see. Oftentimes I can't get through with a stroller. You are making a situation that's already pretty bad much worse for us. I don't see how your business is benefiting our neighborhood other than you bringing in what you're saying is minority-owned business, and that's fantastic. But how does it affect the neighborhood? I think what you're doing is great.
Anya, thank you. I appreciate the comments, but some of that's a little repetitive what we've been talking to. As we're approaching 8:30, I'd just like to give everyone the chance to ask a question. But thank you. If you have any
Thank you,
further
Anya.
questions, please feel free to send me an email. But next I have, I'm sorry if I pronounce this wrong, Jazenia.
Hi, sorry, you might hear some noise. I'm a single mother. My name is Jasenia Wormsley. I live on the South End, Sharmat Ave section of South End. I've heard everything between safety and the parks being littered. I have a 5-year-old and I also have a week, almost 2-week-old now. I do not take part in cannabis. I still support this. I still think it's a good idea to have it. For the people who lived in that building, I think Brian, I don't know people's names like that. I was just listening to the conversation. Said that he wouldn't mind a restaurant there, but they already complained about French fries building up the whole thing. I don't think cannabis, which were in containers, that they already said they weren't going to make it there. You're not going to have the smell as much, is going to be a problem compared to French fries being made downstairs from you guys. Also for the park situation, there's, I call them Mass Avians. I have my 5-year-old next to me right now. The people with mental issues on Mass Ave, they go into every park. I've seen it in almost every park I've taken my daughter to. I've been checking them for needles. I've never seen a bag of cannabis on the floor. I've never seen a roach on the floor. It's always been needles or anything else. When it comes to the parking, we live in a city, honey. There's gonna be parking issues everywhere. I understand the safety from everybody's point of view, but I don't think that a cannabis section in that spot is going to be an issue. So I hope Desiree and everybody involved gets this going, and you guys open up. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next I have Javier Morales.
Sorry, yes, Javier Morales from 43 Lawrence Street. Let me say, look, there's definitely going to be changes in the neighborhood. We may agree or disagree if they would be beneficial or negative to the neighborhood. One of these is for sure the no loss of property values due to the presence of the dispensary. So in the case that in a sale, there is a loss potential or potential benefit for the seller, and so that the valuation has become lower due to the presence of the proximity of the dispensary, would you be willing to assume legal liability? For sure, lawyers can craft a proper agreement. Thanks.
Thank you. Next I have Susan.
Could you just at least make a comment on my question?
Can you reiterate the question, sir?
Yes, the question is if you are willing to assume legal liability in the case of a sale of house, that the property value has decreased due to the presence of the dispensary, because it's very easy to say there's nothing, there's no implications, and then we just, if there's such an implication, we're just impacted, not you. So you better.
I understand, Javier. Right now, Boston has one of the highest property values across the nation. There are 11 dispensaries open, and there will be a minimum of 52 dispensaries. I just don't see 50 dispensaries across the city of Boston bringing down the property value here.
It's in the south end, where we live.
There's
and
actually.
Can I
There's
finish,
that.
please?
I don't want to engage in back and forth. I just really want to answer your question. There is a dispensary on Albany Street. That dispensary has not lowered the property value on any of the buildings or condominiums on that street. My lawyer can answer the second half of your question in regards to assuming legal responsibility.
We're not going to get.
So you're not willing to take any responsibility. Thank you very much.
I believe, sorry, Mr. Morales, I believe that the applicants have made it very clear they take a significant amount of responsibility, but your question, we're not going to be entering into legal discussions of any nature during this call.
Okay, fine. So we can discuss it later. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Susan.
Yes, thank you. And thank you everyone for your time this evening. I know it's been a long call, but I did want to address several things. Number one is, I'm not sure I understand the hours. You have CVS, which is an establishment that has a pharmacy that does sell controlled substances, that is not open as long as you will be. You're proposing being open from 9 a.m. to 10 p.m., 7 days a week. CVS is open from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m., 5 days a week, and 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. on Saturday and Sunday. Cleary's, another institution that actually engages in selling recreational substances for entertainment, is open 5 days a week. They're closed Saturday and Sunday. So I'm not sure why your hours need to be as long and for 7 days a week. Secondly, the traffic safety issue, I know that's been spoken at nauseum, but again, I'm going to reiterate the liquor deliveries that both Cleary's and Brownstone, as well as Urban Grape receives, creates a huge issue in terms of double parking, both along Columbus and Dartmouth, blocking traffic in both directions. You also had, as early as a month ago, a major accident because of the traffic, and it was on Easter Sunday at 5 p.m. where someone was taken off in an ambulance. So this is a very busy intersection. Adding more traffic is not going to enhance or benefit the community or the neighborhood overall. The other issue I wanted to talk about is regulated business. Yes, this is you, Desiree, you say this is one of the most highly, if not the most, the highly rated regulated business in the Commonwealth. Well, I'd say right behind that are bars and establishments with liquor licenses. And once their patrons leave the premises, they have no control as to how those people behave, how they are going to affect the neighborhood. And all of us who live on Chandler Street, on Columbus Avenue and Dartmouth and the neighboring areas have all been victims of the chaos that some of these patrons have brought about. So we're very supportive of your business, and I'd like to clarify something. There are a number of businesses owned by people of color. Flower is owned by Joanne Chang. Urban Grape is owned by a biracial couple. Tim's, which used to be in the old Coda space, which is the location, was also owned by an African-American. Club Cafe, which is about a block and a half away, is owned by an LGBT member, as is Berkeley Perk on Berkeley between Chandler and Appleton. So we do support businesses that have owners that are of color. We do support it. It's the reason many of us have moved here. So please don't misunderstand our objection to this business. It has nothing to do with the people owning it. It has to do with the effect to this community, the effect to the safety of this community in terms of the traffic flow, the children that come in and out of their school bus and camp buses every day of the week. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Susan. I just want to note that we do have about 15 minutes left. So if everyone can please keep questions, comments to the point, that would be very much appreciated. Next, I have Michael King.
Hi, thank you. My name is Michael King. I am the executive director of the South End Technology Center, which was mentioned earlier, and I'm here in support of the dispensary. I don't see this as being an issue for the services that we provide, and I support it because I think that one of the good things that I like about it is that it's another business owned by people of color, and where the youngsters and other people in our neighborhood can feel like they belong to the South End. I still continue in the South End Tech Center, hear discussions from our young people about the way they're treated in a lot of the businesses and stores in our community. And then my other point is, like, people talk about they in support of minority-owned businesses, but it's the people or something that they're talking about that they have a problem with. Most of the issues were safety, substances, and traffic. And so when I see that makes me think, well, who you feel unsafe with? Who are the people that they're feeling unsafe with? And that we do have a safety problem in the South End, but it's not because of marijuana and the dispensary. We have a substance abuse problem that is spilling over into all the communities in the city. And I would hope that the people who are concerned here would also come to meetings or come to initiatives that are working to help those people and help get those people off the street, because that's, I think, where this much of this comes from. And I just think that there's like a stigma or whatever around this dispensary that people connect with some of this other stuff. You all moved here with all this traffic. This traffic has been here when many of you all people moved here. It's been here. I've been here, all my life, and but it's been here for the last 40 years at least. And so all of you moved here with this traffic here. So it's part of being in the city. It's part of the South End, and it's part of the neighborhood that we love. So I'm in support of the dispensary, and I hope you all will too.
Thank you.
Thank you, Michael. And then just to address a comment in the chat, most people had more than 2 minutes to speak. So I just wanted to put that out there. Next, I have Danielle.
Hi, thank you for your time tonight. I think first and foremost, this isn't about being for or against a minority-owned firm. It's about the location and the appropriateness of this business going in the former Coda space. The clientele comparison between a retail cannabis store and between a retail cannabis store and the restaurant Coda is like comparing apples to oranges. It's a completely different thing. Parking is absolutely an issue, and anyone who lives nearby, as you've heard tonight, can tell you that. The team referenced garage parking at rates that start at $20 plus per hour. It seems highly prohibitive to utilize garage parking. And in terms of children and buses, we have 3 young children and we walk to and from school on a daily basis. We pass the space every day. It's a highly trafficked area by families with young children. This is not an appropriate business for the space. To Cecilia's point about people smoking on their steps and in their alleyway, we live on Warren Avenue across from the McKinley School. I can tell you, we see a lot of this behavior in our alleyway and outside our home on our steps. I don't want to see more of it. This is not appropriate for this location. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Next, I have Jessica.
Hi, my name is Jessica. I've lived in the South End for 41 years on West Adams Street. I would like to support this proposal. The application ties and community, and I believe it should be supported as a woman-owned company. I don't believe this business will cause any problems in the community, and the owners are likely to give back to the residents, offering jobs. So I support this proposal. Thank you. My address is 9A West Adams Street. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, I have William's iPhone.
Hello.
We can hear you.
Hi, thank you for accepting my view here on what's going on. I just wanted to state that I've been a resident in the South End for over 35 years. I am in full support of this proposal. I see it creating jobs. I see it being something beneficial for our community in the sense that, you know, minorities are willing to proliferate and progress in gentrified communities. So I also wanted to state that one of the biggest concerns was traffic. And I feel like a lot of people are kind of like exaggerating a little bit because I live across the street from Tremont Street. There's a Starbucks there and we suffer every single day with the traffic. It's a huge disturbance, but apparently to the South End residents is not. So I don't see why having a cannabis location would be a concern. And also I am a father of 4 children. They go to the school locally in our neighborhood called the Herbal. And I've always been a huge support of our community. And I am a minority. I just wanted to state that. But I do work, I pay my taxes, and I do pay full rent because all the other businesses that are being built around here, especially condos, definitely bring up the property value and also the rent. So that's something that we have to deal with on a daily basis. So I feel this is something that's good for the community. Like I said, it will create jobs. It will be something that's very beneficial. So I am in full support and thank you for your time.
Thank you, William. Next I have Rachel.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for your time. I'm going to keep this short and sweet. Rachel Stavis, 130 Appleton Street. I just want to reiterate and reinforce the concerns of my neighbors regarding safety, traffic, parking, and the devaluation of property value. For those reasons, I'm strongly opposed to the dispensary at this location. I firmly support female-owned and minority-owned businesses. I have no problem with the cannabis industry. It's just this location that is giving us all concern. Thank you.
Thank you. Next I have Barry.
Hi, my name is Barry. I live across the street at 310 Columbus. Similarly to what Rachel just said, I don't want to waste time. I know people want to speak and I don't want to rehash everything that's brought up, but I do think it's important to reiterate as a direct neighbor, literally across the street, that is, this is going to be exacerbating issues that are already in place, like parking, like safety, and the like. So someone said it really well earlier that some of these things are already issues and we just don't need another reason for it to be any worse. So I've lived across the street since 2010, long-term neighbor here as well, and really do support this business. And I just hope that they can find another location. It's just really a terrible intersection as it is. And we just don't need any more, I guess, activity right there that just could cause, major safety concerns. So thank you everyone for your time, and I'll let the next person share their concerns, or I guess not as well. Thanks.
Thank you, Barry. I do just want to reiterate that, a lot of the concerns around traffic are concerns that are, they're citywide. When there are a minimum of 52 cannabis dispensaries operating in the city of Boston, each dispensary will operate more as a local business, and you will not be seeing people driving in from out of town just to visit a dispensary. There, like the dispensary on Freeport Street has parking. There is a dispensary in East Boston that has a huge parking lot, and many more that will be opening up over the next few years. And so, when I continue, I'm not dismissing the concerns of the community when they speak about traffic, but the population in Boston is growing. It's going to continue to grow. Traffic is always going to be a concern. As a community organizer, I have seen neighborhood groups and associations become stronger in their request for, proposals to include parking and to address the parking issues. So it's a reasonable concern. It's just not what we're seeing in the cannabis industry today. I think a few years ago, we were seeing a lot of lines and people driving in from other parts of the city and other states. And that's just not something that we've been seeing with the 11 dispensaries that are currently opened. And we don't expect to see them when there are 52 dispensaries operating in the city of Boston. Furthermore, the Boston Cannabis Board has not received one single violation. And when you compare that to the liquor licenses in the South End, in downtown, the impact is not.
Yeah, and can I just
one, if I can just finish.
Sorry.
The impact of a cannabis dispensary is not the same as the impact of the liquor licenses. There is a dispensary open on French Street. They are across from TD Garden. They are surrounded by bars, and the traffic in that area is not exacerbated by the dispensary. People who are already walking in the neighborhood tend to be the patrons there.
I just respond really quickly. I want to make a quick point that for the record, if this was a Starbucks that was trying to open there, I would feel the exact same way. It has nothing to do with you guys opening your business. I support it. I really do hope you find the right location for it. But for people that live in the neighborhood and you walk by, let's say, the Starbucks on Tremont Street and West Canton, you see the double parking. You see that's already a busy intersection. And so if there was a Starbucks trying to open across the street, if there was a Dunkin' Donuts trying to open across the street, I would feel the exact same way, because it's already a really dangerous intersection with people already double parking and really just ignoring pedestrians. It's really dangerous. And, you know, people do sit on my front stoop. People do break into my vestibule. I mean, I'm not saying that this is going to be a direct response to what you're trying to do here, but it's already a problem. And I think any industry that's going to go into that space, that's going to create more traffic, foot traffic, automobile traffic, what have you, for those hours, 7 days a week, is going to be a huge strain on the people that live right here. So when you reference things like by, you know, TD Garden, that is not a highly residential neighborhood. It's just not. And people that live right here in bigger buildings and in smaller brownstones are directly affected by this, you know, potentially opening. So I really do support you. I really do hope you find the right location. I just really don't think this is the right spot for it.
Thank you, Barry.
Thanks, Barry. We are at 8:30. There were 3 people that were still waiting a while to speak, so I will give them the chance, but if everyone could just try to keep it brief, it would be appreciated. But next I have Beth. Beth, you're muted.
Okay, I couldn't hear you, I'm sorry. I'm in support of the shop. I live in Columbus, about 3 blocks away. And the reason I support it is because of the location, because it's well trafficked in terms of not wanting to have people use their pot or whatever. If it's in a location that's more off the beaten track, it's not as well trafficked, and it's less of a deterrent for people to not use. So I think that in this way, that kind of this location is good. And I agree with what I think it was Mr. Williams said, Mr. King said, that I moved into this area 6 years ago, but I also lived in the South End in 1979, 78 and 79, with a brief hiatus in Los Angeles in between. And the traffic's always been here, and we can't just go corner by corner and just knock away all the commercial businesses. So the person who said they'd be opposed to Starbucks, I can appreciate that we don't want traffic, but there's going to be a business there. And quite frankly, I have a bigger problem with the weekend partiers than I do with people that are suffering from mental illness or using, or having difficulty with substances that are around my building as well. And so I did talk to people at Victory Partners when they were in contact with the shop that's going to go in on Stanhope eventually. And I asked them very specifically about the correlation, and they didn't have any direct correlation that they could share with us in terms of, this promoting more substance use or anything like that. So, I mean, I'm trying to get educated about it. I'll wrap it up. I just returned from Los Angeles, where they have lots and lots of stores, and they're better neighbors in some way because they are so regulated, and there just isn't the sort of the line and the worry and the headache that persists at bars. So I'm in support of this in its location. Thank you.
Thank you, Beth.
Thank you. Next I have Helen.
Hi, I live at 285 Columbus. I'm very in support of women-owned businesses and minority-owned businesses. My math says, you said 200 people a day is your business model. That's 1,400 people a week in and out of that store, 18 an hour, if my math is right, which I'm pretty sure it is. So that being said, I don't understand. I guess I would question, how are you going with that magnitude of people in and out? How are you going to be able to get people to sign a friendly neighbor commitment? The traffic issues, I mean, that's a tiny storefront. That's a lot of people in and out of a store in the course of a week. So I just want to, I think we need to look at the math to underscore the fact that there is going to be enormous congestion. I don't think you're going to be able to control whether or not people are friendly neighbors, and you're not going to be able to control the people in and out. So I would kind of throw it back at you. I mean, what kind of assurances are you going to be able to give us that you are going to be able to basically be successful with everything that you suggested to us today, that you're going to be able to do to give us assurances that it isn't going to cause congestion? There aren't going to be people milling about. We're not going to get bicycles. We're not going to get a ton of traffic. That's a big, big number in and out of that store.
Helen, thank you. I mean, I believe that when our patrons come in to purchase, as first time patrons, they will have to sign the Good Neighbor Agreement. Once that neighbor agreement is signed by the patron, it will go on file with their name. Every time that customer comes in to purchase, we will have a history of their purchases. The 200 to 250 customers a day is really an estimate based on what we're seeing across the city of Boston and across the state of Massachusetts. As I mentioned earlier, there are 200 dispensaries open, and what we're seeing is as dispensaries open, the number of clients per day at each dispensary is lowering. 18, if I can just finish, please. 18 customers an hour is about half the amount of the convenience store that's on Dartmouth Street. There's way more in and out. Patrons come in, they buy cigarettes, they buy water, they buy snacks, they walk out, and they continue moving. We're not expecting people to loiter outside of our neighborhood, outside of the establishment, since people are usually either on their way home or on their way to work or on their way somewhere in the South End.
Well, all right, I will cede the floor to somebody else. I'm just going to say there's a lot of conjecture in your business plan. There just is. And it just makes it difficult to be in favor of it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Then I'll take the last person with their hand raised, and then we can wrap up for the night. So next I have Raul.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
I wrote mine in the comments.
Yep.
Hello,
Hi,
can you hear me?
please mute your phones, and thank you.
Okay. I live in this neighborhood for the last 15 years. I know the area very well, but I would like to put a word of warning. If you are guys familiar with the Netta in Brookline, that is a dispensary. That dispensary, I usually go every morning through Harvard Street and Route 9, and I see the lines there, but there is one important thing on Netta. They have an area where the people that is in line queuing, they have a good space and they have a good protection with police and everything else. That is missing in this location that you are trying to set up. Also, I am very happy to see that you are trying to enforce a friendly neighborhood agreement. A good business plan should have a good friendly neighborhood agreement. But I would like to know who is going to enforce it? How is it going to be enforced with 200 people daily? Do you know the amount of paperwork you have to just keep track of these people? And I made a calculation, assuming that you guys are extremely efficient and every guy that goes and buys at your store will spend 5 minutes. Assuming 5 minutes, that would be very efficient. So 250 persons times 5 minutes, it's 1,250 minutes divided by 60 minutes per hour. It's 20.8 hours of operation to take care of these people, okay? So I don't know. The other problem that I see very clearly is this is basically a cash business, basically. So you're gonna have the truck that comes to pick up the cash. Also, you're gonna have the movement of the cash, I don't know how many times a day. Also, you're going to have the movement of the product. You don't have an area to receive and ship. So that has to be done in front of the store and creating more problems that we have talked. The same thing for bicycles. you assume that the guys that come in bicycles are on rented bicycles. How about if they have their own bicycles? Where are they going to put them if there is no place? Okay, so I think the business plan that you've been talking about has some deficiencies, and definitely, if you want to be successful, I think this is not the right location to be. Thank you.
Thank you, Raul. Just to clarify, cannabis establishments do tend to be cash businesses, but a lot of them are accepting debit cards, so they're not only cash. The average sales time has been marked to around 2 minutes by other dispensaries in the city of Boston. Most of the patrons that come into dispensaries already know which product they're going to buy. Many of them will pre-order it ahead of time and just pick it up. And we will not have any deliveries of product at the front of the building. We have an extensive, we have an extensive security plan, which was conducted by Windwalker. They have been conducting all the security, they have been completing all this, most of the security plans for many of the cannabis establishments and have been used by the city of Boston. So we're very confident in the comprehensive plan that they've put together for us.
Yeah.
I do want to thank you for your time. It is now 8:40. And unfortunately, I have a 2-year-old that I needed to pick up at 8 o'clock. I would love to answer more questions. If you want us to reach out to you, please put your email on the chat. And I will also put my email on the chat right now.
Thank you.
And
Thank
I
you very
encourage,
much.
yep, I encourage anyone who wants to meet or speak to email us.
I appreciate you trying to hold on for a couple of more minutes. And I want to thank you, but also tell you that in a cash business, I don't know what the percentage is debit card with cash, but I think mainly this is a cash business. And principally, that could bring close criminals to attack people that is bringing cash with them to buy.
Okay.
That is
Well,
very dangerous. And in a long line, you won't have the security to keep the people under control. Thank you very much. And
thank you, Raul.
All right. Thank you, everybody. So with that, we can wrap up for the evening. Like Desiree said, if you have any further questions on the proposal, feel free to reach out to them. I believe she put her email in the chat. And then I'll put mine as well. In case you have any questions, more than happy to connect you to the project team too, or if you have any other city related questions. And then this meeting is recorded. So if you would like to view a recording of the meeting, you would need to put in a public records request. If you reach out to me, I can help you with that too. So I'll be putting my email in the chat right now. And feel free to send any letters of support, opposition, non-opposition, anything to the Cannabis Board too, and I'll put their email in there as well. But thank you everyone for your time and have a good rest of your evening.
Thank you, Kim. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you all. Have a good night.
Thank you. Have a good night.